Welcome back to Living Life 1128. I'm Mark, and today we have a special treat. Today we're going to be learning all about sweet potatoes. We're going to interview a fellow by the name of Wayne Miller. He's from the area, who has been growing sweet potatoes for the last few decades and sending sprouts all up and down the East Coast. So let's go see Wayne. We're here with Wayne Miller in Littlestown, Pennsylvania. This is the sweet potato expert in the area. He's a local farmer that sells sweet potato slips up and down the East Coast. And we're going to learn some things about sweet potatoes now.
Let's come in and shut the door.
Ooh, it's warm in here.
Yeah, but not warm enough.
Not warm enough.
It should be that warm you can hardly breathe. Now I can't see. Now there are excellent roots.
Those are good roots, yeah.
Now there's two of them. Now when it becomes 90 degrees, there's what you want to plant.
Huh.
Just like that.
And why is that?
As I said, the leaves are going, they will not lay down. They're going to stand there, take root, and grow.
Okay.
Leaves will come out within 10 days to 2 weeks, and they take off.
Okay.
You will not lose. Like I said, 99 out of 100 will grow.
Okay.
Whereas if you take that out on a hot day, they come out of here, they're tender. And it's 90 degrees, whether you have them on a row or whether you have them on plastic. They're going to do that. That plastic is hot, it's going to burn them. And when it burns them, they're dead.
That makes sense.
So if you plant that, it's going to root, and those roots are excellent.
So this greenhouse is where when do you put your seed potatoes in here?
Usually the 20th of March. And usually by now we're pulling by the thousands. But this was an exceptional year because we only had partial sun 3 days in April.
Okay.
And that really kills the production, as you can see. These are sprouted, but they haven't come up yet.
So when you pulled this out, you just kind of reached down into the soil and just pulled that off the potato.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to plant the whole potato. You cannot cut it. If you cut the potato, it's dead.
Okay.
Some newcomers think you cut them like you do Irish potatoes. You can't do that.
Okay.
And another thing you have to do is when you dig them in the fall, you've got to air dry them. Scatter them out, put a fan on them, and then when you store them, keep them 60 degrees, give or take, but not lower than 50.
Not lower than 50 degrees.
50, they'll get black inside. They will not sprout during the winter. Now, if you see sprouts coming out on your potatoes around Christmas, they're happy.
Oh.
Those sprouts are not happy.
They're not happy.
Nope.
If there's sprouts coming around Christmas time, then they're too warm or too cold?
They're warm. They're
too
happy.
Warm.
They're happy. Doesn't have sprouts on yet.
They are happy then.
Yep.
Yeah.
They're the opposite of anything else you raise. Light on the fertilizer, and you got to keep them warm after you got them.
Keep them warm after you take them out.
Irish potatoes you can put in the basement where it's nice and cold. They'll thrive and won't sprout as much. These you got to keep them up. Years ago, the old timers put them upstairs under the bed. Heat would rise from the basement.
God.
You know, or wrap them in newspaper.
Yeah.
That was kind of the theory of the old people. Another thing you got to do is get them out before the 1st of October or by the 1st of October. The old theory was don't let the October winds blow over them. If the winds blow over them, it's the same as putting them in a room with air conditioning. They're too cold. Will not keep.
And I know that if sweet potato vines get frosted, if they experience a frost, then it'll quickly...
They'll turn, the frost makes the stalk bitter, and that just follows the vine back into the potato.
Okay.
So you want to get them out from 1st October on.
Okay.
One year it was wet and we couldn't get them out. I mean, it was wet. And I had 40 bushel to take out with gloves and rain pants on. We took them out, laid them out to dry, lost every one. And you do not want to wash them. First thing you think, well, I'll wash the mud off of them. No, air dry them. If you want to do anything, put gloves on and rub the dry mud off when it dries. But do not make them wet. Yams, you can do that, but not these.
The difference between these sweet potatoes, which are white sweet potatoes, and
These are
yams.
classified as a white sweet potato, but I have the red or the white. It's just the skin. There's no difference.
It's just a difference in the skin color.
Yep.
Which both of that is different than yams.
See, that one's red, almost like a red beet, versus the white one.
Yeah,
White. As you can see, the two are red and white.
and it's just the
But
skin.
inside, they're the same.
No difference in flavor.
Nope.
And those-
Some people argue it is. I always say, well, some people say a red egg tastes better than a white egg.
So these are both different than a yam, though.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which are orange inside.
These the pilgrims brought over.
Mm-hmm.
They're heirlooms. They just you can plant them year after year. All I ever known was the old fashioned, and the reason being for that, I always said the pilgrims brought them over. They're the originals. Now what you buy in the store today, the red ones, they're yams, and they're hybrid. Where these are not. These are like the old time corn you used to plant, open pollinate.
So these are heirloom potatoes, and they've been in your family for a while.
Well, my great grandmother planted them, and my grandmother planted them, got me started in them, and of course my dad was in between there. He planted them when he was a kid, so it was just handed down from generation to generation. And
You told me a story about when you were 10 years old.
yeah, when I was 10, Grandma gave me a bundle, about 25, 30 in a bundle wrapped up. She said, "Now, don't you ever get out of my seed." And they're still going on 62 years later.
62 years later. I did the math. That's 72 years old.
Yep.
And you have sold these sweet potatoes up and down the East Coast.
Yeah.
And so you just, when you plant those, you just put the roots under in the soil.
Yeah, when the row is made, you need a row about 10, 12 inches high, about that wide. And the ground should be worked up nice and fine. And when it's fine like that, I just take them out, push them down in, let them stand like that. Now you see my thumbprint there made an indentation, like a funnel. Now when you water them, that water runs down to the roots.
Oh. And then it'll actually fill in. It'll wash soil down in there too.
So it won't around it. Yep.
Won't hurt the roots.
The air don't get to the roots.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
But you don't fill that hole in.
No. You just let it like that, and if it rains enough, it'll wash in there and seal it over, and that space doesn't hurt a thing. As long as it's sturdy. You know, you can stick it down, do the next one, You can plant quite a few of them.
Yeah.
I used to go out after supper and plant 500 and think nothing of it. That's what I used to.
How'd your back feel after that?
Well, you know you did it. Let's put it that way.
You know you did it. That's right. Well, you certainly have given us a lot to think about and a lot of information and good wisdom regarding growing the sweet potatoes. But you mentioned about the soil that doesn't need a lot of fertilizer. You mentioned to us earlier about these potatoes don't like special treatment.
No, definitely not.
So the ground is too hard under the traditional way of doing it, unless you make mounds.
Yep. You gotta mound them up.
That's good to know.
If you don't mound them up, you're wasting your time. And another thing, you gotta keep them clean. Weeds will kill your crop quick. Any crop, but especially these. And if you don't use black plastic on your row, you can use grass clippings, straw, not hay because that has seed. Anything you put down that keeps your weeds down and gives you a little moisture now, they thrive on dry weather. That's not a must. Rain helps, but I mean they're more of a dry climate than real wet.
So they like the soil drier?
Yeah, if it's wet, real wet, you'll get vines. You may get vines that high. But look out, there's nothing underneath.
All the growth went into the vine and not the potato.
And
Yeah.
I thought then, boy, I bet there's nothing underneath, and it wouldn't.
Yeah, well that makes sense.
It's a lot of work for a little return, but you have to like it.
Well, when you plant as much as you do, I'd say it is a lot of work. And but what I have found is that it's not particularly a lot of work to put them in the garden and get some really good sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
The return is actually quite good.
Taking the vines off is another chore.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2-3 different ways you can do it. I use bush hog, mow them off right level with the tops. That way when the plow comes through, the ground rolls out and covers the vines.
Yeah.
We used to use a corn chopper and chop them and pull them back and chop them. It's okay if you got a few. But when you got 5,000 of them, you don't want to do that.
From a gardener's perspective, what I have been doing is I roll the vines up, and when I come to where it's attached to the potatoes in the ground, then I dig the potatoes, and then I continue to roll the vines. And what I end up with is a roll, can be this big around, of sweet potato vines. But I really have, year after year, I think about the first thing I want to do is go through there with a lawnmower.
Well, you can take a riding mower, blow the vines up. That way you're not putting the vines down in the choppings down to the ground.
Yeah.
Go up one side, turn around, come back the other. That'll help. When it comes time taking vines off, that separates the men from the boys.
Yeah, that is where most of the work is. But there's the flavor and the size and the return of those sweet potatoes is well worth it. They are really good sweet potatoes. And the first year we grew sweet potatoes, we got some. They weren't your sweet potatoes. Last year we got sweet potatoes that were, most of them were about this size. Anywhere from this size to this size. The first year, I believe it was Beauregard, they were yams, which many people call sweet potatoes. And we had some that were the size of your head. They were just enormous. They would serve to feed a family of 4 for 2 meals, easy. But so you plant the slips, and then you let them grow throughout the summer, harvest after after October 1st.
October 1st, or you start October 1st. Now, I'll watch the hurricanes. Since I have so many, I'll watch the hurricanes. If they're going to come up here like the 3rd week of September, I'll start digging at least to get my seed back.
Okay.
I can live without eating, but I can't live without seed for next year.
Yeah.
So that's another thing I watch. I mean, somebody has 25 and up, well, you don't have to do that.
Right.
You can weather it out and still get them out in time. You dig them in a day. But we have too many to do that with.
And then once you dig them out, once they're out of the ground, you dry them.
Air dry them, scatter them out on cardboard, and it'd be good if you could open the door and let a draft go through them during the day. In 1st October, you still have Indian summer coming on. You have some warm days.
Yeah.
And
what about drying them in the sun?
Yeah. If you only have a few and you don't have to move too many of them, let them out in the sun.
And then once they're dry, how long do you dry them for?
2-3 weeks.
2-3 weeks.
To be safe.
That's good to know.
You can't over dry them.
Okay.
You can under dry them, but you can't over dry them.
2 or 3 weeks to dry them. And then once they're dry, store them in a place that's dry and about 60 degrees.
Yep. And if you see little leaves coming out along about Christmas, they're happy. Their leaves are plenty cool. You better move them to someplace else so they get a little warmer.
Okay.
More warmer is better than more cooler.
So if around Christmas time they've got some leaves, they're happy, yet you want to move them, still want to move them to a place that's a little warmer.
No, you don't have to.
Okay.
They're happy. If you see the leaves, they're happy.
Okay.
You're safe to let them. But if you don't see any leaves, then you know that you're just a little tad cold.
Okay. If you don't see leaves, move them to warmer around Christmas time. That's really good to know. I think a lot of people are looking to grow food that's nutritious and tasty, and yet they can store it. And especially nowadays, when a lot of people are going back to the old ways.
Yeah.
And it's become necessity to a certain measure.
People come every spring for plants, and they say, I had them down the base where it was nice and cold, but when I went for them, they were black or they were rotten. I don't know what happened. Well, you had them in the cold, that's the problem.
Okay.
When you said cold, that was it. You got to keep them warm.
Keep them warm.
So we get them every year.
Potatoes like to be just like people. They like to be warm in the winter. Yeah, okay. That's good to know. And then when it comes time for replanting, you can use your potatoes. You can use the potatoes that you stored all winter.
Yeah.
Just pop them in the ground in March.
Yeah.
And then when the slips start to come up, you cut those off.
Pull them off.
Pull them off.
Don't cut them.
Okay, pull them off.
You want roots. Now, if there's only one hair root on, it'll grow.
Okay.
As you've seen, these had probably 12, 15 roots.
Okay, yeah.
But I've experienced that with one root, it'll still take off. The same
Okay.
Same as it had 10 root. If it was only that one on, it would grow. But you'd have to have a root. You cannot plant something like that without a root.
Okay.
Now you can put it in water. My grandmother did that. I seen that. She'd have a quart jar sitting on the window with she'd pull them off and stick them in there to grow roots.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that.
Well, Wayne, thank you so much for all that you've shared with us and taught us. And this is coming from a lot of years of experience and
A few. Yeah.
and years before that of your generations that have been planting these potatoes, these heirloom potatoes.
Yeah, if
sweet
I could
potatoes.
only talk to grandma and great grandma back years ago, but as a kid, you don't think of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, when she gave me the bouquet of plants, why, I thought I was in tall cotton, being a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
But because she was always giving me seeds, flowers, pannies, stuff like that, and this was the last thing she gave me. And
So
a lot of questions have popped up through the years that I don't even know if she would know.
yesterday we were talking a little bit, and I asked you about when you stop doing this, what's going to happen with your heirloom potatoes?
I'm afraid they're going to bite the dust.
He's afraid they're going to bite the dust, and I think that's a shame because I know that there are people that would be watching the video that would actually very much like to have these potatoes, and as they've been handed down in your family in generations from generation, that they would have vision and desire to hand them down in their families from generation to generation. I would love to see these sweet potatoes continue on long after we're all gone.
Well, I can see a problem why they will not, because there's not enough money back of it for the amount of work you put into it. People won't work like that.
Well, if they're doing it for the money, that probably is the case, but I think a lot of people are doing it because they want to put good food on their table and they want to grow their food.
Mm-hmm.
And in that place, it just spreads it out as more of a grassroots type of situation rather than a business situation. And
the older generation still plant them. The younger generation, we have very few young people come.
yeah,
Because number one, they don't have a garden. Number two, it's too much work. And it's just a vicious cycle.
yeah, I think that's changing some though.
Yeah.
And if the younger people knew you were here, you might get swamped. So again, Wayne, thank you so much. We appreciate everything that you've shared with us,
All
and
right. Sure.
I'm sure people are very appreciative of what your knowledge is and your wisdom that you shared with us about growing your sweet potatoes.
Well,
So what we have to say with that is, get yourself some sweet potatoes And if you can, get some of Wayne Miller's sweet potatoes. You won't be sorry, they're delicious. So we have some happy potatoes. When Wayne was talking about around Christmas time, if your potatoes begin to sprout, that means they're happy potatoes and they like the temperature they're being stored in. These guys are sprouting. Now these can be planted in the ground around mid-March. In the central Pennsylvania area, would be around mid-March, in a hothouse. Wouldn't be warm enough outside in the ground without a hothouse. Or what you can do is you can do what we did, and my wife about a month ago, in the middle of April, took a potato and simply put it in some water. And as a result, it began to sprout. It was warm in the house, and roots began to grow. Now we've already taken, a half dozen sprouts off of this potato, and it's simple to do at this point because you just tear off the sprout, and that's ready to put into the ground. And store it in water until you're ready, or keep the roots moist until you're ready to put it in water. Now, these are great just as they are, right like that. See, that's got a whole lot of root on it. But something like, and even this one, can be put in water. And something like this one that doesn't have roots on it yet, you take it off, and if that sits in water, it will grow root. So Wayne knows an awful lot about farming sweet potatoes, doesn't he? And he comes from the place of a traditional farmer. And so that means he plows up the ground, he makes his rows, he mounds up those rows, and he grows his sweet potatoes in those rows with black plastic. But doing it in a wood chip garden is really different. You don't have to make the mounds. We never have, and have had really nice sized sweet potatoes. He also said about that it's a lot of work for little return, and that's really not the case with a home gardener, because it's not a lot of work. You're not planting 5,000 sweet potatoes. You're planting 10, 20, 30, 40, however many you plant, but it's not that many. And the return really is, it's abundant return for the labor that you put into it. To summarize, plant your sweet potatoes when the weather is warm, up to July 4th in this area. Harvest them around October 1st. Don't let them freeze. If they freeze, it's really important to get them out the same day because they will turn bitter and they will begin to rot immediately once the vines freeze. Cure them 2 to 3 weeks in a warm, humid environment. 90 to 95 degrees is what we do, and I put a humidifier in a small space, and that provides the humidity, and if I need to, I put a heater in there, so that provides the heat. Don't wash them, very important. That'll help keep them from rotting. And store at 60 degrees, keep them warm, minimum 50 degrees. And if you're going to use potatoes for seed, then if you're planting in a hothouse around mid-March, if you're going to put them in the water as we do, February to April, mid-April is the time to do that. And then tear those sprouts off and you can put those directly into the ground. So then once they're in the ground, then the process starts all over again. Enjoy your sweet potatoes.